So in my last plant-based cheese video, we fermented tofu for about a month to create a cheesy flavor. Now I simply just added the fermented tofu to some potato starch to give it a stretchy cheese-like consistency so I could taste it to see if it was close to cheese. The fermented tofu did really well in flavoring cheese, but I do feel like there's a lot more complexity to the flavor of cheese other than the funky bit of the fermented tofu. Now on this plant-based cheese journey, I want to continue down the path of discovering new methods of flavoring plant-based cheeses, so that way in the end we can really narrow it down and come up with a very tasty, very cheesy-like plant-based cheese. So in this second video, we're still on the taste journey. And in today's video, we're gonna be working with lactic acid. Now, lactic acid is pretty well known in the plant-based cheese world, but it's something that I have not really messed with. So I wanted to give it a try today. We're also gonna be messing with a few other ingredients for consistency and for stretch and pullability, and just see how close we can get to a plant-based cheese. The base of the recipe is from Mary's Test Kitchen. I'm gonna be messing with it a little bit just to kind of get the variances on acidities, sourness, tanginess of cheese, and just see what we come up with. So let's get moving making some tangy cheese using a lactic acid. So what the heck is lactic acid anyways? So lactic acid is part of the alpha hydroxy acid family. It was first isolated by a Swedish chemist in 1780. The chemist was actually able to isolate lactic acid from a jar of sour milk. It is produced by bacterial fermentation and is commonly used as a pH buffer, preservative, or a flavoring agent in vegan cheeses. You'll find it a lot of times in Colby, cheddar cheese, cottage cheese, and sour cream. But you also find it a lot of times in blue cheese, buttermilk, yogurt, pretty much any sour milks, you're gonna find lactic acid inside of it. So sometimes lactic acid is also in some sour beers and wines, but it's also responsible for the flavor in sourdough bread. So to start this recipe off, you need some soaked cashews. So we're gonna take about a half of a cup, we're gonna do a light half cup of raw cashews and soak them in water overnight. So now that we have our raw cashews, these guys have soaked overnight, they're pretty soft, like a creamy nut. Very nice and soft, no bite to them left. Just gonna strain that cashew water out. Give these guys a nice little press here. So to get this recipe smooth enough to make cheese, you do need a high-powered blender. So we're gonna add our cashews, our soaked cashews, to the base of a high-powered blender. We're gonna use about 1.25 cups of aquafaba, which is about 1.5 cans of the juice from chickpeas. Then starting on a slow speed, let's blend these guys together. And we're gonna get them pretty nice and creamy. So I ended up turning this blender all the way up to make sure that this really got smooth. I mean, and this looks really good, really good. So I'm just gonna use my wire mesh strainer again, pour this through just to make sure that there's no large nut chunks or nut bits, any like skins or anything. And you can see there's just a little bit remaining in here. And this really made a nice, almost like thick kind of cream, very consistent with like a cream of like a milk. Very, very nice cream. It has a pretty nice kind of cheesy taste to it right off the bat, just with the cashews and aquafaba. So in this recipe, we're gonna use a few different starches. The recipe that I found by Mary's Test Kitchen uses all tapioca starch, which I know binds up really well and really creates a nice like gum consistency. But we also know from my last recipe that potato starch does a very similar thing, but also helps add a lot of stretch to it. So we're gonna mix the two. We're gonna add the strained mixture back to the blender. Make sure it's all in there. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon of tapioca starch, 1 tablespoon of potato starch. And I know today's video is all about the taste, but I really wanna kind of start working on the stretch and discovery of that kind of stuff. So we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of konjac root. This is glucosamine. I've used this before in the stretchy ice cream. I've used this quite a bit in different stretchy products. It's used quite a bit as a gum in different fake meats like the Beyond Burger. It really does add a nice bounce and chew consistency. So I really think this is gonna work really well in cheese. So now for the flavoring, we're gonna add our lactic acid. That's gonna really sour this up and give it a very nice cheesy taste. We're gonna add 1.5 teaspoons of lactic acid. It's gonna give us a very nice kind of sour cheese taste that we're looking for. About 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And one more ingredient that I can probably have a whole other video about, kappa carrageenan. Kappa carrageenan is what's gonna help gel this and solidify this into a block of cheese. You could use agar-agar as a gelatin, but kappa carrageenan works really well for vegan cheeses. We're gonna add about 3 teaspoons to this mixture here. So we're just gonna pulse blend this all together, just kind of mixing it on a low speed. Just pulse it, make sure it's mixed nicely. If you blend too quick on a high speed, the blender will heat up the mixture, which will start gumming up the starches, and you don't want to do that. Now at this point, we have about 6 tablespoons of melted coconut oil. We're gonna add that to our mixture, and then just again, quickly pulse to incorporate. And this is a refined coconut oil, which a refined coconut oil pretty much takes out any of the coconutty flavor. That looks pretty good. It's a nice and kind of thick, creamy mixture, like a heavy cream almost. And I believe it's gonna have a really nice taste. Ooh, almost like an Alfredo. That's really good. It's pretty incredible how much this tastes like an Alfredo. It's really incredible. So that gets my head spinning on what we could do here in the future with this. But for now, we're gonna heat this up and turn this into a block of cheese. So what we're gonna do is just add the mixture here to a saucepan on a low heat. And with these starches and that glucoma man to really get activated, we're just gonna kind of stir this while it's heating up and get it to that point to where it's a glossy, stretchy, creamy cheese. Once the mixture hits around 170 degrees, we should be good to go. You'll really see a difference in its consistency. It's gonna go from kind of like a lumpy consistency to a smooth and shiny consistency pretty quick. And that's when you are done and can take it off of the heat. So I'm just gonna use my ring mold on a plate and just kind of fill this guy up. So I want to try this other method here really quick, just again for some future testing, where you kind of take a ball of this melted cheese and then just drop it in the ice water, which should give you little balls of mozzarella. So I'm gonna let these guys hang out in the ice water for a little bit. I'm gonna drop this in the refrigerator for a few hours until it firms up, and we'll be back to taste it. Yeah, so awesome. Okay, it's been about an hour and this stuff looks awesome. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. Look at this thing. It's firmed up. So I know that this video is all about the taste is what we're trying to do, but I know a lot of you already probably know about Carrageenan, but if you don't, I mean, this stuff firms up and it feels like cheese. Feels like cheese. Even the same thing with the mozzarella balls. These things look and they actually kind of tear apart just like mozzarella would. It's really kind of mind-blowing. And the taste is really incredible. Really incredible. Wow. That is like next level. The consistency is not 100%, but it is pretty dang close, I'll tell you that. The taste is very nice. So now I just kind of want to cut this cheese here, see what we get. Oh, that cuts perfectly. Oh, that looks so nice. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. I mean, this has like a really nice cheese consistency to it right off the bat. Pulls almost like a string cheese would. I'm finding little breaking points of it. Wow. It's a little bit softer. My ratios might not have been perfect. It might have needed just a pinch more of the Carrageenan, but I'll tell you, wow. It has a very nice kind of mozzarella taste to it. Very almost like the sour cream, sour cheese type of taste. I could literally eat this all day. So now we have a little rounder profile of getting a cheesy taste with the fermented tofu, using a fermented product. We have the lactic acid, which I think is really, it adds that nice kind of sourness to it. We're gonna try one more thing in the fermented world in the next video. If you have any ideas or you have any videos that you've seen where you know that makes something very cheesy, let me know in the comments down below. Also, I wanna make sure that I thank Surfshark